Welcome to O's Across the Pond, the show covering all things Baltimore Orioles, but from a fresh European perspective. Join us for the highs, the lows, the heartbreaks, and everything in between. Whether you're a die-hard fan or just discovering Birdland, this is your home for passionate, across-the-pond Orioles talk. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of O's Across the Pond. Tonight, joining me, as you can see, it's the likely lads. Hello Andy, hello Grant.
Evening.
As you may notice, Grant is back home. He joined us from his holiday on the last episode. So, did you have a good holiday, Grant? You're glad to be back?
I did. I didn't like not having my MLB TV on my TV in the morning when I woke up, and with an extra hour to wait because it was another hour in Spain. So didn't feel quite at home with the Orioles. That's why I wasn't on too many pods, because I wasn't catching up with it as much as I usually do.
Well, you were sorely missed. And Andy, you had an interesting few days down at Silverstone for the Formula One.
Well, for me, it's up at Silverstone because we're in the south, as you well know. But no, it's long days running the car park shuttle for my sins. But lots of happy people and lots of happy Lando fans, seeing them coming through in the pouring rain and in the dry. But no, all good and glad to be back. And I must remind everyone, it's 2 weeks till I go to Baltimore. So happy days. Only 8 more working days and then I'll be off there. So all good.
Happy days indeed. And for our listeners across the pond, if you are not aware, there will be an American team on the grid next year. So Andy, if you're doing Silverstone, will you be flying the Cadillac flag?
Unfortunately, I tend to be in the papaya sort of flag. Through thick and thin, and I'm mostly thin, to be fair, in the last few years. So
it's 2 decades,
when they were rubbish, I was watching them. So now I can say, just like the Orioles, at some points, I watch the rubbish team. And when they get good, I'll stick with them. And I won't disappear when they go bad, just like the O's.
So, without further ado, we'll just be able to cover this week. What a week it's been. There's plenty of talking points. The biggest one is the Baker trade. Now, 3 weeks out from the deadline, we were expecting some moves. We've been in debate of whether we're going to be a buying team, a selling team, or could we find that middle ground of being in the middle? So we expected trades this time of year. Everybody does.
Yep.
I think it's fair to say, yesterday morning going into the double header, that we weren't expecting who on statistically on paper has been probably our best reliever and one of the best in the leagues this season, a trade of Brian Baker. But I think when you look at it, and this is just my opinion, you guys can digress, I think it's excellent. Baker is never going to be ranked higher than he was this season. To get pick number 37, Tampa's competitive balance pick, for that is excellent value. Look, Baker did, he had 2 years of team control left, but he had no options. There's no flexibility there with Brian Baker. I think when you look at the value we've had off him, he was picked up off waivers in 2021. You can't fault that. I think it's been a success, especially with what you're getting back for him now. It's a shame that his last performance was, in Orange was so poor. Yeah. Looking at the value of the draft, we get the 37th pick in the draft means that we've got 7 picks in the top 100. We've got 4 in the top 40. So we go into Sunday's draft with pick number 19, 30, 31, and 37. Interesting that the Rays came in so 3 weeks out for a reliever. Relievers don't tend to stick around in Tampa. So my guess is Brian Baker's not going to be there in 2028. I doubt he's going to be there in 27. I think it signifies the point that the financial issues that Tampa have at the moment, that they couldn't afford the 2.6 million in pool money on that pick. The interesting thing is, and this I tweeted it out the other day. This came from one of our contributors, Dave, in the WhatsApp group, and it's interesting. It can be done. Should it be done? Will it be done? I don't know. But he made the point that I was just going to read this off my phone. So the Orioles could use the bonus pool money for picks 22, 30, 31 and 37. Obviously, it's pick 19. If they could get to offer Ethan Holiday, pick 1 slot money and pick him at 22 overall. If they could get Jackson Holiday to sign an extension through Ethan's arbitration years so they could play together, it would be interesting to think about. Then with picks 30, 31 and 37, they could pick and sign 3 college senior pitchers, give them each 100k, give them the prestige of being a first-round pick. Forever Matt Holiday's a bench coach, and you've got yourself a great deal. Now, whether that's going to happen, I don't know. But that is the kind of flexibility that we've got. Elias has come out and said that the likelihood is he could draft a pitcher using one of those 4 picks in the top 40. It's also a type of trade that, would definitely signify a sale. But as I said, an offer like that 3 weeks out, it's too good, especially for Brian Baker. It's too good to turn down. The interesting thing for me, the timing of the trade and the similarities of it kind of took me back to the Brandon Hyde firing after such a poor defeat to the Nats, and the front office made the decision. Then, now was the point. After such a poor defeat, they've obviously decided now is the point to think, and to finish off, I'd have Sir Anthony Dominguez. I think he will be the next one to be sold in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of that, Thomas. I did not expect us to trade Baker. We were talking in the WhatsApp group about do we sell high on Baker, and I thought we've never traded anybody who's under team control for the following season, especially now that we're hoping to be competitive each year. So the fact that there's 3 years of Baker after this year, I didn't expect that to happen. However, the return that we've got is huge. A 37 place draft pick added to the fact that we've now got 4 picks between 19 and 37. I am sure that opens up all sorts of possibilities and risks that they might not otherwise take with first round picks. Also, the fact that we are taking a top, basically a first round draft pick off a division rival in the Rays, who are really a draft and develop team. They are not a team that are going to spend big at all, as you pointed out. I think that's a really interesting point that you made about the finances. And you said earlier that do they not even just want to spend the money on a number 37 draft pick as a 21-year-old and give him money that he won't be playing for probably 3 or 4 years, or certainly 3 years. So we've done really well. I think, yes, it does kind of signal that this season is drifting away, and very ironic that as soon as that happened, we promptly went and swept a double header against the Mets, which I don't think anybody really saw happening at all on the same day, and kind of actually made real progress back into the wildcard game, back into wildcard race, or certainly made a game progress yesterday. Baker, yes, he is almost certainly not going to be at Tampa for 3 years. They're going to probably pay him $1 million next year in arbitration. He's still got trade value, assuming he pitches well. I wouldn't be surprised if this is his best season. I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa work with him and get him going to be a better reliever than he's been this season, or at least as good. He's been very up and down for us. Now, we've just traded Baker. Brian Baker was not on our opening day roster 2024. He was not on last year on the opening day. He arguably only made the roster this year. Maybe not, maybe that's just people talking, but possibly only made the roster because Grayson Rodriguez got injured. I don't know.
Without
they
a
would have
shadow of a
done.
doubt, that's the case. If that is
Yeah,
the case, and I
because
think Andy would probably agree.
No, I would.
he might not have made it, and then he probably would have been DFA'd, might have cleared waivers at that point. He certainly wouldn't have cleared waivers now, given how good he's been. So I didn't expect us to trade. I didn't expect us to trade this early because we do have a couple of weeks of meaningful baseball to try and get ourselves a bit closer to the race. We've certainly played now an extended period of 600 baseball, so there's a body of work there forming to say we can keep this going and get a few players back. Whether we do that, probably we won't. We'll probably that line for Elias is lower down. But I think the fact that we've got a very good return, we think of guys that have gone at that kind of level in the draft. That's Jordan Westberg. Gunnar Henderson went in the early 40s. I think Aaron Judge went in about 36, 37 once upon a time. So there is potential to get a really good return back next week, on Sunday actually, from this trade. So I don't think you can really blame Elias for doing it. Yes, it does make us weaker this season, but not, even with a good season, Brian Baker was still a 0.1 WAR player. So
Just on the points before Andy jumps on, just on the point about it makes us worse this season. On paper, I'd say I'd agree with you. Statistically, what Baker's put up this year has been outstanding, totally unexpected. He hasn't done it before. There isn't a body of work to say like he can sustain this. So, is it without upsetting a lot of people who are on the Elias hate train? Is it a masterclass could this be a masterclass from Elias where he's seen it and gone, he didn't make the roster in 24, he only just made it in 25 due to injuries. The performance he's put in were not expected. Someone's come in here and gone, we'll give you a competitive balanced first round pick, and he's gone, I'm never ever going to get that value back for him. And if Baker had fell off this season with the pitchers coming back, Bradish, Rodriguez, who's the other one who's injured? Wells.
Aiken's injured. Povich could come back and play as reliever. Yeah.
There's a severe likelihood that he wasn't going to be he probably wasn't going to make the opening day roster next year. So
I think the point I was making with the fact that he's an experienced guy, and he's had a good season, and he's got 3 years of team control, they do kind of need to replace him now. I don't think they're going to replace him out of thin air. They've not got a huge depth of relievers in Norfolk, albeit there's maybe some starters that could or will adapt to being relievers next year to get a roster spot. But relievers are so volatile, so who knows what the moves it will make and who will pick up. There's always these kind of minor league guys that come in and they're being starters that you can kind of see if you can get a tune out of. We've still get your old friend CNL Perez sitting in Norfolk, not doing very much. I'm sure we'll see him again at some point if we can.
Stolen my thunder. CNL he's on his way back. I agree with
you would add, Andy?
Pretty much everything you've said, I absolutely agree with. I think it's way over where we would normally expect to get a return. I think the interesting thing is, at some point, he would have a bad spell and we'd want to DFA him.
Which he's had this week,
Indeed. He had it on Monday or Tuesday, whichever day it was. Can't seem to remember the days of the week after doubleheaders.
And his first game with the Rays.
Absolutely. And two run home runs. He had the ability to implode. He wasn't absolutely brilliant. He was not my... If you went to me and said, who are your number 1, 2, 3, 4 relievers, Brian Baker wouldn't have been in my top 4. However, he was solid. But you're not going to keep him for 3 years without DFAing. So I think Elias has someone coming in and saying, I'll give you almost the crown jewels for this. I'll give you a first round draft pick. You'd race there and you'd do it. And that's why I think he did it at the time, because it was a very, as you say, very unusual time to do it. Just before a double header, we weren't prepared because you could see that from the roster moves we made. We brought up Banuelos, and we didn't bring a second pitcher up until the second game, so they weren't ready for it. But you would do it, absolutely. I think it's a great trade, and it allows CNL to come back up without too much of a problem, because we're going to change the bet that if CNL pitches a perfect inning.
Andy, I'll disconnect you. I will disconnect you. I will disconnect you from the podcast.
Yeah, I'm saying, but maybe, well, they do know more than we do about what's in the farms system coming through. Wolfram was absolutely lights out. We'll come to him. Yeah. Come to him. And the highlight which we'll come to is Soto looking back at him and acknowledging how good the pitching was for someone in his third ever major league game. So there's stuff we don't know. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Grant. We've got some starters coming back in the second half. Now, they're not going to replace people, but they're going to supplement them so that we end up with more relief pitching, because the people like Cade Povich, Albert Suarez maybe, they would end up being our relievers, and I'd much rather have Albert Suarez than Brian Baker. But I think it was a great move, and I'm really looking forward to the draft. 4 picks in the first 37. That is going to be interesting, and maybe Ethan Holiday will drop down to number 20. Yeah. But I doubt it very much.
No, I mean, that was an interesting kind of scenario that David kind of laid out. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Holiday is going to get a first or second draft pick, and he'll get 7 or 8 million, whatever it is. And
he's going to go to the Nats, isn't he?
Nats, or I mean, the Nats would make sense from a geography point of view, if nothing else, for his dad to go and see as many games as he can for both boys. So
he's batting out because he's got to go and do that as well, which is fine.
But there was a point yesterday in the second game of the doubleheader where Sagano was kind of struggling slightly in the 5th, and I thought this is where they would go to Baker at this point.
Yep. Or it would have been maybe Aiken would have come in if he wasn't injured, because it's that right to left, which we like doing.
And then Sagano got out of it, and then he had a quick 6th, and that set the game up for the kind of 3 relievers to come in. But there will be spots where we miss them, especially until we get some of these guys back.
Yep.
But that's just the way it is. I think it was too even if we aren't going to be sellers. We don't know that yet. We probably still will be, obviously, because we know how Elias thinks, and we know that even with the doubleheader yesterday, our playoff chances have not increased significantly, and we need a lot of days like that to go our way in the next 2 weeks to be properly in the race, where you can say we've got a reasonable chance here. But it was an exciting day yesterday. It was a very enjoyable day for everything to happen from kind of lunchtime onwards for us.
I mean,
kept us busy and interested.
You look at the dynamics we've discussed, how many times, especially Andy, me and you, we've said we've always kind of been stuck around that 11, 10 games back mark of 500. Yeah. We're now to 8 games back of 500, the first time since May the 6th.
Yep.
We're 6.5 games back of the wild card, and no winning games against National League teams. It obviously helps, but we do need help from interleague play, and we also need to be winning our interleague games. This is a situation where you look at this upcoming series now. If, without saying the S word, if you S word the Marlins, get a bit of help from the series that are going on around the leagues this week, you could go into that All-Star break and 5.5 games back of the wild card. You would be 5 games back of 500. All of a sudden, you then look at, as Grant says, there's a body of work now where we've kept up playing 600 baseball. You go the second half of the season. We saw it with the Detroit Tigers in 24. Was it 24 or 23?
Last year, yeah.
Last year, we've seen it with the Tigers.
They were out of it. They were selling. They were out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know how we all know how Elias works. I just think that with the deadline being 3 weeks away, that there is still enough time for us to obviously.
Next 2 weeks are critical.
They are critical. It's vital that during the break, yeah, the players do get a rest and that, but you know, there's a lot of work to be. Come on, I just wonder. This is going off track a little bit. When at the start of the season when we were discussing Brandon Hyde, and I can remember, you know, I think it might have been a couple of weeks before where we played the Athletics. There was we could be going into that Athletic series, and we could be, you know, 10, 13 games back at 500. I just don't want us to look and go at the end of the season, did we cling on to Brandon Hyde 2 weeks too long there? Because apart from obviously Marcelino's first 3 games, you know, obviously there was a struggle. You've just changed manager. It's been pretty much spot on. All right, we still keep on having these
flips,
these capitulations in the, like, you know, the 7th, 8th innings of games that we're leading, and you know that ties us into game 1 where, you know, we go into the 8th. We're 6-2 up, are we? Going into the 8th, and then all of a sudden,
yeah, we were 6-2 pitching in the 8th.
Yeah, and it's those type of games, and this is what you know. You look at that the national. That's why I mentioned the Nationals game in that Baker trade where, and the Brandon Hyde fire. It was kind of one of them games where it's like, this has happened again, and do we need to make a decision? And you know, Mancelino has even said the players still want to win. The players don't want to be a selling team, but it was just another one of those games where, you know, if you stamp that out, that's a swept series. There would have been another swept series early on in the season, and I know it's not as easy as that, but
what I would say about game 1 is there was a point. I think Baker had gave up 2 home runs, didn't he?
Yeah, 2-2-run home runs. I
think there was a point after the first home run that he could definitely have made a move. If there was somebody warming, I know that there's ways of slowing the game down if you've not got MD ready to go. I think you've got to kind of press those buttons at that point, because obviously that was a winnable game. Other thing is, were we really playing with our hair on fire there, thinking we need to leave everything on the table to win this game, because Young had his best game for us ever. Excellent, 5.5 and a third, 2 earned runs, 5 hits, but 2 earned runs. Kept us in the game really, really nicely.
Strikeouts.
Yeah.
Was that a game that we were thinking we're going to win this? We're going to leave everything on the table for Young against Clay Holmes. It probably wasn't, and that was probably in his mindset a wee bit. I just thought it was unfortunate. I mean, we'd already used 2 relievers at that point when Baker was kind of giving the game up. So, yes, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but it was frustrating. And what I would say, though, is you're saying if we could cut that out, Thomas, this is how we were supposed to play baseball this year. We weren't supposed to be winning every game and being 10 games ahead of the. We were supposed to be just a slightly above average team.
I understand,
and that's
that,
what we've been. We've just had the first 4 weeks, 5 weeks of the season were such a disaster. We're so far ahead, so far back.
I understand that what you're saying. Like, we never expected this team. You know, we didn't ever think that we were going to be a 101 win team this season.
Yeah.
We knew there was going to be struggles. However, you know, obviously you no one can look into the future. Well, yeah, some people claim they can, but if you're a psychic, why didn't you choose the lottery numbers every week? You'd be a millionaire, wouldn't you? However, you didn't know game 2 was going to be postponed until obviously a double header.
Yeah.
Like that game, losing that game from a win, you're 4 up going into the 8th, into the bottom of the 8th.
Yeah.
You know, that could have been a game there, but you've lost that, and then you'd end up in that double header. We know our record on double headers.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, the work that has gone on since John Mabry's come in, we covered it last week. You know, improvements. You know, we're in the top 3 of kind of hitting stats since Mabry come in. I don't really, Brian Baker, but I think the true story of the game is look at the runners and scoring position. It was an occasion, 4 for 10 runners and scoring position. We left 5 on. Granted, on the flip side, the Mets were 2 for 9 and they left 8 on base. So it's one of the, as I say, if that could have been a game, we could be having a different conversation here now after that double header.
I agree entirely. The thing with this is, we were doing this game in, game out earlier in the season. This was exactly how we played.
We weren't even getting to the stage where we had a 4-run lead to defend at any point.
Absolutely.
So
it would have been 2-2 going into the 8th, and then we'd have imploded, and then we'd have lost 22-2, because that's what we do. Very disappointing the 10th as well, that we couldn't get that runner in. It's easy for us to sit here and say, but it's not rocket science getting a player in from third base when you've got 3 outs to play with. Which is why
it's extras. You start with a man on second.
Exactly.
How have we done it?
Yeah. So, but I think the key is that we didn't let it get to us too much, because in the next game, instead of doing the same again, we did something totally different. We did the opposite, and that's where I think we've developed as a team and where we've grown as a team. You lose a game, you're going to lose a game. You're going to lose 2 in every 6, 1 in every 3, and you're still doing okay because you're batting 6. Here, I think we've learned, and I think Mansolino has done a lot of that as well to help that, to almost calm the players down. Don't worry, guess what? Tomorrow, albeit it was going to be a double header, and you're right, we haven't won double headers in as long as I've been watching. It's so rare.
It's unusual for any team to sweep double hit. Usually they're split. They're split probably 70% of the time, aren't they?
Yeah, because you have to, by default, use the whole squad. And it depends how you play against them. And we were facing a left-handed pitcher, which is always going to be a problem for us. We know that. It's still the same as it always has been. We haven't got a strong right-handed team. But game 1, over, done with. We moved on to game 2.
I mean, game 2 for me, 2 out 2. I mean, well, the three pitchers, every single one of them outstanding. Charlie Morton,
he's great, isn't he? If only we'd had him at the beginning of the season, this venerable gentleman.
That was game 1 was Morton,
Yeah, sorry. Was it? Yeah, well, game 1 of the doubleheader.
Yeah.
Sagano.
Tacoin.
No, it was Charlie Morton was on the first one. Sagano was on the late game. They swapped him round, didn't they?
Yeah, they swapped him round. Tacoin, Ben McDonald, spin him if you got him, because Charlie Morton was spinning them. There was some nasty breaking balls there. All right, 4 strikeouts. 1 run. Grant Wolfram took the win. 2 innings. Only allowed 4 strikeouts. And Felix Bautista is 18th save of the season.
Out of
we
19.
say it all the time.
Yeah.
The best closer in baseball, and it's
Felix we trust because he's
these rumours that have come around the last couple of weeks about Felix Bautista might be on the block. If the team this team is going to be a winning team next year and the year after in 28, if you are not trading Felix Bautista.
If you get a 37th pick for Brock Baker, what are you going to get? Number 1. And you're not going to get that, are you? That's the thing. Unless you're going to get lots and lots of prospects, lots of cash considerations, which I doubt.
I mean, I think the people that are mentioning this, the people that are talking about it, don't have a clue, because Bautista has got 2 years of team control.
Yep.
Of which we are planning to be competitive in each of those 2 years. So it's not even an option. If you get to this time in 2027 and we're struggling, then talk about it. But he's not going anywhere.
Off he goes, but not now.
I think we did see that last year without him.
Absolutely nowhere.
There was a good half a dozen to 8 or 9 games that he might have seen us through on last year when we were kind of struggling with Kimbrel and whoever was available at various points. So,
I mean, Felix Bautista, there was the graphic went in the WhatsApp group before the Orioles all-time lineup. Felix Bautista, I asked the question about what kind of players could get in. Felix Bautista is one of those players who is going to get into that lineup. Obviously, if he stays for the next 2 years and if he extends him, he is going to be an all-time Baltimore Oriole, if he carries on the way he's going, 18 saves out of 19, how much we missed him last year.
Yep.
You know,
And
this...
And a long period with not a lot of opportunities to even make saves the first 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
You know, we hardly gave him a chance.
Yeah, agreed.
So,
I mean, yesterday, that first game, the Mets pitcher, Peterson, was absolutely brilliant. He was one of the best left-handed pitchers I've seen pitch against the Orioles. Was it 5 hits? Yeah, but there were nothing. 5 singles. Really soft contact. He dominated. But Charlie Morton matched him for 6 innings again. And the masterstroke of bringing Gunner in to pinch hit, which I think that they mentioned it in commentary that they think he would have done it anyway, even if there wasn't a change of pitcher. But Gunner he did what Gunner should be doing.
yeah, apparently Gunner hasn't got a clutch gene, but he had one there.
First pinch hit home run as well for Gunner.
Yeah.
First pinch hit, go ahead, home run the Orioles have hit since 2016, which I was amazed at. Given
we love a
given
stat.
given the times we've had with the likes of O'Hare and Mountcastle and Richmond, occasionally Santander coming off the bench, that was quite a start for 9 years since that's happened.
And the other stat I was astonished with, I think was it 1-40 when we were losing going into the 8th. So this season, which is absolutely crazy, we just never came back, but we did.
Yeah. That was certainly one of the big things, the monkey off the back in the Mansolino era, to get those kind of, even if you were just 1-0 down in the 3rd inning, just to get a win from being behind, we hadn't done it. So we certainly are capable in the mindset. The mindset has shifted, and that's why it's kind of so frustrating that we are where we are. And
yeah, if only.
I mean, I keep flipping about the buy or sell. Not so much buying. I don't think we're going to be big buyers. I think in an ideal world, we have a good couple of weeks here, and we get to maybe 3 games back of the Red Sox and Mariners, whoever it is. I mean, that would take some doing to do that, but in an ideal world, we get there and it's obvious that we've got a head of steam up and we can't sell anything else. I think if we're 5 games back and there's 4 teams ahead of us for 1 wildcard spot, then the odds are not in our favour at that point, even if we're still playing 600 baseball.
I agreed, and I think the other problem is that 3 of the people we thought might actually go decided that they'd injure themselves. So Sanchez, Mountcastle, Eflin, they were 3 of the bigger ones that we could sell for something.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
And I mean, the other side of that, the sell column, the pros in the sell column are, if you can get that for Baker, what are you going to get for Dominguez?
Yep.
Dominguez, Soto, Charlie Morton. Maybe O'Hearn would be a big, not the same as the pitching, because every team's struggling for pitching as some
Trevor Rogers as well, potentially.
No, Trevor Rogers, we've got him next season. I don't think he's going anywhere.
And especially the last performances have been absolutely. With Trevor Rogers, we hope we just.
Kittredge has got an option, for a club option for next year, so I would be surprised. Yeah. Now, there's a question of Laureano. He could be a sell high player. He does have an option for next year.
Yep.
Which, in theory, we would need somebody there, but we've also got AAA guys. It could be a sell high move. I would be surprised if it happens, because if you sign Laureano and he's got that option, he plays well, and you're losing Mullins, then you're surely going to take the option for him. But you see what you can get, because if we end up selling Mike Elias in his element, he is going to absolutely fleece some clubs that are a couple of games above 500 and think they've got a chance.
I think it also kind of going back to the picks that we've got on Sunday, and the opportunity to sell some of the players that have been mentioned. If it came down to that, it gives the front office and Mike Elias a great platform to go into the off season and maybe use some of those picks that they're going to draft. Get some pitchers and get them down to, high A, and they may become pieces in the off season to go and get an ace. The prospects that we could get in for trades at this deadline could be used in the off season in a package to go and get an ace. So
yeah,
they've just got to ensure that they put the organisation and this winning team that is going to win next year in 27. Give them the best opportunity, especially with your starting rotation. We've said it all year. We can't afford, and it's shown this year, we can't afford to go into next season and have the first 20 and 30 games that we've had this season. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's some known unknowns for next season. I agree, the rotation has got to be a priority. That is something that hopefully Elias can see the error of his ways. You know, there's been a few errors that we've seen develop. One is to only draft left-handed hitters in the top rounds.
And outfielders that, you know, the pipeline's full of them. It's just
and the other one is not going for a big, you know, a stopper, a front of rotation guy this winter, and thinking. Now, it is frustrating that Morton is kind of turning in to have the season he's having, but it was always going to be a season with a low ceiling at best. It wasn't going to be a Corbin Burns season or a 2023 Kyle Bradish season. So the kind of known unknowns for us are when we get Bradish back, what is he going to look like? Is he going to be an ace next year? There's potential for that. Yep. Rodriguez is also in a similar boat, and that he does have potential to be a 1 or 2 in the rotation next year if he can get back and show us something and stay fit, obviously. And Tyler Wells. Now, Tyler Wells was a big part of the 101 win season. In that first half, he was excellent. It certainly tailed off a bit. Don't think it was injury. I think it was fatigue related at that point. I don't know if he's going to be built up as a starter again. He certainly looked good when he came back in 2023 as a reliever. Could be a very, very good reliever for us. So those are the kind of big things. But yes, the four picks, I think that was a mistake that we didn't make previously when we were getting all these top talents in and top youngsters, as we kind of kept them all going till they were kind of AAA, 4A players, and then traded them. You know, what do those moves look like if you say to some clubs that have got loads of pitching, right, we'll give you these hitters for these AA pitchers and we'll develop guys from there, rather than developing, you know, 21-year-olds out of college, because the pitching development does seem to take a lot longer than the hitting development. It is a lot more volatile, and there's a lot more injuries that obviously can derail guys' careers. Yeah,
Sorry, just to interject on what you're saying there about the pitcher development. If you remember, when we did the pod very early on and we were discussing Mike Elias's drafting of pitchers, the only draft that he's took since he's been doing drafts for the O's that he took in the top 3 rounds. Go and have a look at his stats in AAA at the moment for the Mets, because he is cooking.
And he ended up not signing, obviously.
He didn't sign. Ended up they couldn't agree to a deal. So it is interesting. Move on to Game 3. Sticking with the pitching side of things. You know, a guy who has struggled of late, Tomoyuki Shigano. Now, he showed glimpses of an improvement, and he also showed there was a bit of shakiness, but he managed to work out of it. Now, it came out after the game that he's been working on a lot of things. His velo was actually up as well. He's been working on his mechanics. His kind of, I think it was to do with his upper body balance. So I'm not a mechanics guy. That is what came out after. There was an improvement. If Shigano can kind of find a bit of magic from, you know, the performances he was putting in earlier in the season, it's definitely going to help us in the long run, especially with Kyle Bradish coming back. Just to go back on when you were talking about Tyler Wells, my only concern about Tyler Wells is there aren't many success stories of people coming back from having an internal brace fitted. He didn't just have Tommy John, he had the internal brace. If you go and have a look at the injuries of pitchers that have had internal brace and the reoccurrence and the massive drop off with internal brace. And on Grayson Rodriguez, I know there's still so much of the season to go. He hasn't progressed from throwing bullpens. He's throwing bullpens that he's playing catch. He hasn't faced live batters. Kyle Bradish obviously going to be back. He's going to be back in August. He is, I think, due up for a rehab start very, very soon. He's faced live batters down in Florida. It's full arse other pitchers. So he's going to be on a rehab assignment very, very soon. I probably expect him back. Is the first week in August going to be too soon for Kyle Bradish? Are we kind of looking at the middle of June, middle of August?
For me, the big ones, if we are going to compete and we're not going to sell, are Bradish and Rutschman. Now, both of them are not going to be rushed back. You know, that we've not really seen a timetable. We've seen, I think Rutschman's hitting just off a tee.
Not a full swing
either. Rehab's he's not catching. You know, if we were really desperate, maybe he would come back as a DH. But we're not at that stage. If it was the last couple of weeks of the season, maybe they would do that. But Rutschman and Bradish would be difference makers to if a team managed to claw themselves back to, you know, 2 or 3 games back of a wild card race in the 31st of July. I think 3 games would be as good as we could get there unless we get a lot of help from somebody. That would be the ones that are realistically going to come back and help out. I agree. We've not seen anything particularly positive on Rodriguez, and the fact that he was almost going to start the season, and then it was a strain, and then he was going to be out for a few weeks.
It's a worry.
We're sitting here 3.5 months later, and he's not even been in a Florida complex league or anything like that. Then
on Grayson Rodriguez, obviously he had issues with obviously his forearm, his shoulder, and he had issues a couple of years ago with the lat injury. He obviously changed his mechanics, and that's what then caused these other injuries with his shoulder, and now they've been working on trying to obviously prevent both sets of injuries from happening again. At what point, Andy, do you have the conversation of where you just sit him now for the rest of the year?
I think August tells you whether you sit him or whether you don't, because if we're set up, you may well want him to come in as a fresh pitcher from, say, September to push us over the line. If we're not, what's the point of rushing him? You may as well just let him do his rehab starts at a nice pace in AAA, AA, and get him absolutely right for next year. A bit like Felix Bautista. I don't know if you're going to.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to get him right for next year. I think he could just be one of these guys that is injury prone. So I mean, I think if he's fit,
what makes you say that, Grant?
If he's fit this year, he should pitch at some point. Whether he's starting, the bigger question would be that if he does get to some kind of fitness, do you just use him as a reliever and see him as a reliever? Because he would be a very, very good one-inning reliever.
Yep.
Yeah,
all very possible.
Maybe that is where his career is going to lie, because you know you're using a roster spot for this guy over the winter. He's barely pitched 10 games in the last 2 seasons, the last year.
It's a bit like John Means, I suppose, isn't it? John Means was never really good. Yeah, it was a risk. I mean, we kept a roster spot.
Yeah, we could keep the roster spot for him. Then it's harder to do now, obviously. Especially we'll see what kind of. Especially if we're not sellers, we've got all these guys to try and keep over the winter. Yep. So it's disappointing, but yeah, I think for me, Aiken's the other one that should come back at some point and help out. Certainly doesn't seem to be a long-term injury, and we'll see how the rotation goes. I mean, I think we've seen very positive steps in the last week from Morton, Trevor Rogers, and now from Young having his best game. So that kind of it's always a problem that was developing for us with the kind of Povich injuries. McDermott pitched in AAA, not particularly successfully, but at least he's pitching. He would be available if we needed him. And that was the first kind of double header where we've not brought up a spot starter from AAA because we don't have one basically. Yeah.
There's no one left. They're all
on the bare bones of our arse.
If you think of the last spot starters, Young, already in the rotation.
Yeah,
Trevor Rogers, already in the rotation. So
Aiken injured. So game 3 across the board, numerous massive performances. Jordan Westberg, we've said that he is the glue. Him and Adley Rushman, statistically are the glue to this team, for a winning team. Gunnar Henderson again, another night.
Yeah, another 3 for 5. So he did 4 for 6 over the 2 games, which
Ramon Laureano, batting 270, OPS 831.
Yep.
Did you think we were going to get that when you signed him in the off season? No. Seddy Mullins, another 2-hit night. Simon on X also mentioned him.
Jackson.
What about the catching experience and batting experience of Action Jackson?
Two for 4, 500. We've got another 6 catches to go through this season, haven't we? So
yeah,
let's wait and see. But I actually quite like both the 2 catches that we've got at the moment. They actually give you something. They're not rubbish. They're okay. They come up with clutch hits and they catch. And they've got to get used to, and they mentioned it in the first game, they've got to get used to the pitching very, very quickly because they've never caught any of these pitches before. So I'm all credit to them, both of them.
It's credit to them.
Potentially a masterstroke.
Getting in from the Yankees as well. And
Jackson
great.
For a couple of bags of peanuts, and he's in 2 doubles against the Mets. Crucial. The first one, I know it was a bit of a bloop, but certainly got the runs going.
Yep.
At that point.
And his OPS is 1.500.
Indeed, yeah. I don't think he'll be carrying that on for a bit.
Yeah. Batting average 0.500, so yeah.
Is he now taking over as the number 1 catcher and Stallings is the number 2 catcher?
To be fair, I think they're probably both much of a muchness. And it's a shame they're both right-handed because if one was left, then you could really play the game. But no, let's see what they do. They're almost freebies, aren't they? They haven't cost us much at all.
Well, the thing is, it's unlikely that Sanchez is going to play again for us this year. So one of them is probably going to get a chance to stay on the roster the rest of the season. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're great, and I'd much rather they were there. And it's no disrespect to the backup catchers that we've got, but I'd rather have those there than Maverick. Albeit we were quite complimentary about Maverick or Trump. They weren't doing much, were they?
Just touching on Gary Sanchez, he got a lot of flack early on in the season, and then obviously he was out injured. Came back and
he was a hero, wasn't
he? He was phenomenal when he came back, and I am quietly saying I kind of a little bit gutted about how it ended for him.
Absolutely,
he was doing so well. I mean, for the crowd to be cheering his name after his start, where it was absolutely awful, and absolutely big turnaround. And unfortunately, he might get himself a contract for next season, depending on the player that is not to be named in these pods because we're not allowed to, and we can't spell it. Can't tell his name anyway.
Two things with Sanchez is I still think it was a bit of a risk to spend $8.5 million on a backup catcher. However, if it is the fact that he was playing injured for that first period of the season,
very possible,
then you need to give Elias his due and say he made the right move. It's just unfortunate. Other point, of course, is somebody who's a professional athlete getting paid $8.5 million should not be the same shape as me.
well, Tyler O'Neill is another case in point, and he's getting paid even more.
In fairness, Grant, you've just spent 2 weeks in the sun eating ham lays and drinking cans of Cruz Campo.
Yeah, that's it. No lunch, just a big bag of Jambon Lays for the lunch. Yep, excellent.
So, three games left before the break.
Yeah.
We welcome the Marlins. You know, Kyle Stowers back to Camden Yards. Andy, pitching matchups. Usually your job. How are they looking?
So
you haven't done it.
Of course I have. You'd expect no less. So Dean Kramer, game 1, which is tonight, tomorrow morning, midnight 05 our time, against Cabrera, right-handed pitcher, 3-3, probably looking better than his ERA. Well, looking worse than his ERA. They're 42-50 as well, the Marlins. So we really, really need to sweep the Marlins if we've got any pretentious thoughts about being anywhere near the wild card position. We've got to sweep them. Dean Kramer, hot, cold, cold, hot. 7-7, so he's only got a 4.53 ERA. So if that can happen, that's a good matchup, I think, for us.
What do
you think, Grant?
So, well, do you know the Marlins have actually been sneaky good, similar to us. Very slow start. Looking without doing a lot of research, it looks like they've got these guys that we're going to be playing here. Maybe not Cabrera, but the game 2 and 3 start looks like they've kind of come back from injury, or they've been late additions, and they've got going and they've got decent numbers. Cabrera, his last 7 games, has got an ERA of 1.88. So he is certainly banging form. I don't know if that's quite as good a matchup for us as you think. We'll certainly need everything about us to try and get some runs off him, clearly. But yeah, the Marlins have been sneaky good. It's just the fact they've got the same record as us, but the NL wildcard race is about 3 or 4 games ahead of the AL wildcard race, so they're properly out of it. Whether that has an impact, in terms of teams playing to compete and get back into the race, and teams that are just going through the motions, we'll find out. It shouldn't have a big impact at this stage. But we certainly need to press the buttons. I agree. If we've got a chance to win a game, there's no next game. There's only this game that we're playing today. Kramer, last 15 games, ERA of 3.93, which considering what he was at the start of the season, he has really started to nail it down. So yeah, we need him to give us. He's been doing it, giving us a chance to win the games. He's done it his career, apart from, it seems, the first month of every season.
Yeah.
So game 2, have you got that as well?
Yeah. So we're facing a load of junk. So Mr. Junk is pitching for the Marlins. Again, very similar, 3-1, 3.12 ERA. The good thing on both of those, are both right-handed pitchers, which we often do so much better from. And we're putting up Trevor Rogers, who's absolutely top notch at the moment. 2-0, 1.57 ERA.
Former Marlin, wasn't he? Yeah, he was.
He was former. So he'll enjoy that, hopefully.
And Jansen Junk was only his 5th start of the season, so I think he has been in relief, and he's kind of been pushed into being a starter. He's got a respectable ERA, respectable number, very respectable whip. So again, they've managed to find some decent starters in amongst not a great roster, and not a great overall season, but potentially improving.
So that game is 4:00 on Eastern time, so that's a 9:00 start for us. So that's at the end of the day, so that will be good for us to watch. And then game 3, Perez's brother, so not CNL, but I think it's Eduardo.
The bad one.
Indeed, 2-2, 4 ERA. So again, very similar type of pitcher. They're not traditional starters because they haven't had that many games, so they've picked them up from the relief corps. But Brandon Young, if he can continue what he did last week, then that would be an intriguing matchup. If we can go deep into the game, and indeed if both Kramer and Trevor Rogers can get us deeper into games, because we are a little beleaguered in our bullpen because we haven't got Baker anymore. We haven't got Aiken. We've got a little issue with the number of pitchers we have and how much we use them. If we can go late into the games against 3 right-handed pitchers, we've got every chance of popping that ball over the wall a few times.
It's a huge series going into this break.
Yep. Couldn't be a better series, or couldn't be a worse series, I think.
And as sorry, go on, Andy.
No, I think the better, if we can go in with 2-1, 3-0, then you go into the All-Star break with a massive improvement on where we've been, and you'll finish probably at 8-2 over the last 10. Everything's happy. If you lose the series, then everything you've tried to do could be scuppered. So it's a bit of a balance.
I like the dynamic of the series with the Trevor Rogers story. I think he's going to want to be lights out. I think this is a game where if Trevor Rogers can be lights out, and I think that will only kind of solidify the body of work that we've seen. Obviously everything that went on last year, the trade deadline, making that move, the Kyle Stowers story, and Conor Norby, that game and this series, I just like the kind of stuff that's gone on in the background before, and it's stuff that we see a lot of it here, obviously in the UK and in Scotland, across a lot of sports, and it's that background story and the history of it, very, very recent history, game 2 and game 3. I think if you want to, you can't, with the break being the deadline 3 weeks away, you want to be sweeping this series. It's hard to sweep a series, but you take a 2-1 win, don't you, Grant?
I think you do, and I think this is a banana skin. I think people looking at the week thinking the Mets are the tough team. The Marlins are actually in a sneaky bit of form. Their offense, I just looked up here, in the last...
Could it be a repeat of the week that we had where we thought, if we can get away from Seattle with a 2-1 win,
then
we go and sweep the Athletics, and it was just the total reverse? Could it be like that?
See that
Is that what you're thinking?
And I think there's a mindset thing of we've got to focus on the Mets games, and then it's only the Marlins. I know they're not the professionals. They're not saying it's only the Marlins. Fans are saying it's only the Marlins. But last 30 days, Marlins are 4th. Their offense is 4th in the majors in terms of number of hits. 236 hits, 269 Tampa leads. Orioles are only 17th in that category. Batting average much the same. OPS is not quite as high, so they're obviously not hitting for power, but they're getting plenty of guys on base. They're causing problems. I think given our pitching staff, then that is something that could be an issue if they're singling us to death. So yeah, the pitching, as we said, could turn out to be quite good. They could have found kind of 3 decent pitchers that we were running into, especially game 1. So yeah, I'm a bit more nervous. Yes, we kind of do need because we are thinking of this season as being this 2.5 week sprint to try and have not go into sell mode. We do kind of really need a sweep. I would take a 2-1 right now. Hopefully we can keep the form up, because we are banging form, let's be honest. We've done enough in a lot of games, and a few games that got away that we could have, should have, would have won on another night. So let's just see how it goes. Certainly it's good to be sitting here being excited about the weekend's games, because I think after game 1 against the Mets, we were all kind of thinking that's it, done and dusted. But here we are. We're still fighting, and we've actually made a very small amount of progress in the wildcard race this week, which we've not said for a few weeks.
Absolutely.
No, and as we always like to do, we like to finish on a positive. So, Andy, I'll start with you first. What's your positive?
So,
you're not allowed to say Jordan Westberg.
No, I'm not going to. Jordan Westberg. I'm going to go with the catching twins that we've got. Stalling and the new one that I can't even remember his name. They are the positive. They've come through and they're shining somewhere where we've been struggling so much because Rushman hasn't been there much in the offensive categories, and coming up with those clutch hits that we haven't had since the dearly departed last year's catcher has gone. So that's my positive for the moment. Our catching depth, which let's face it, when we've got how many on the aisle? 4, and this is our 6th catcher. Are we going to get to 7? I hope not.
Was Jackson not 7?
He was. Oh,
we never used Banuelos.
Banuelos would have been.
Should be 8.
So
I think
my positive, hopefully I don't come to get us, is going to be Brandon Young, because we have without somebody filling out that 5th rotation spot, the season is over. He's come in, he's learning on the job. He had by far his best start. He has looked good and dominant in the odd inning in previous starts that then got away from him. But he's age 26. He fits the bill for what we need, and hopefully he's just more and more confident now. He's got swing and miss stuff in abundance, so it's just a case of knowing when to use it and knowing what he's got on each night, and learn how to get these guys out. Yes, you maybe wouldn't mind facing the Marlins, knowing that the worst they're going to do is hit a single against you, but let's see how he goes. If that's a big game on Sunday, if we're in the series, then we'll sit down and enjoy watching him on Sunday afternoon.
Agreed.
So my positive isn't to do with what's gone on this week. It's to do with after the break and to the end of July. You look at where we are now, 6.5 games back of the wild card. After the break, 10 of the 13 games that we play up to the 31st of July are all against AL teams. We've got a 3-game series against the Rays. We've got a 4-game series on the road at Cleveland, and then we've got a 3-game series at home to Toronto. Now, Toronto 9-1 in the last
4 games.
Yeah, sorry, 4. Does that go into MLB? I know you're listening to me. Sort your website out.
That's why you need to use my friendly spreadsheet, because it tells you exactly that, and that's when I'm there, so I know there's 4.
Right, okay, so positives. The negative, MLB, sort your shit out, get it in one sock. It's disgraceful.
Agreed.
4-game series against Toronto. Granted, they're 9-1 in the last 10. They are red hot. Mm-hmm. But we also know what Toronto can do.
And we know what we can do to Toronto as well, which is also fun.
The big one for me is that 4-game series on the road to Cleveland. We're a game and a half behind Cleveland.
They have cooled off a lot, because they started the season looking pretty good, and they're now pretty much out of it, or close to being out of it. I think it's close, not as close as us to being out of it, but not playing as well as us.
Uh-huh.
No, and that leading up to the deadline, it's going to be interesting, because Michael Elias did say he's not going to leave it late. He doesn't want to, he doesn't want to get fleeced. And the kind of Brian Baker trade does kind of point to that is moves thinking. But if you take the series against Miami, best case sweep the series against Miami, them 10 out of them 11 out of the 14 games then are all against AL competitors, and you're thinking, if them 10 and 14, if you can go
9 and 5,
9 and 5, 10 and 4, you're there. You go into the deadline. You're not back in it. You are well back in the race, and that is my positive. I know we are talking now about this break coming up. I think just a little bit of foresight and looking in the body where we can play 600 baseball. If you go 10 and 4 in those,
and the other 3 games
the Rockies
are at home to the Rockies. So I'm not saying that's an automatic sweep, but they can
It's
certainly
a tough
find
run because
ways
there's
to...
no days off as well.
No days off.
There's no days off in that. So from the 18th of July to the 31st of July, there are no days off. August doesn't look too great. We start August off with the Cubs, but it's about getting to that deadline. As I say, if you can go 10-4, 9-5, you know,
You're not far
you're
off.
you're gonna be up there. And I just look at the teams ahead of us in that wild card race. Guardians, as Grant said, there's 7-3 the last 10. Twins are 500 through the last 10. The Angels are 4 of it. They've gone 4-6. Rangers are 5-5, and the Royals are 7-3. So out of the teams above us, only one team there in that wild card race has got a winning record in the last 10. Even the Mariners are 5-5, and you know how difficult it can be for them in that division. So they had a chance to win a game. Let's just quickly touch on that last night. They had a chance to win a game last night. You know, fantasy reasons, you know, always love a performance from him. You know, we got a win on against him when we were out with Seattle, but he's in a no-hitter going into the 8th. Jazz Chisholm gets the hit, and then the bullpen just capitulates.
And they didn't lift him as soon as he gave the no-hitter up. They kept him in there with the electricity going, and he gave up another big hit, I think, straight away.
So that's my positive. Yeah. The next, obviously the series coming up, and I know that Manzolino has said we're not looking too far really, and you know Gunnar and people have come out and said it's taking it day by day, and I do like that mentality. It is, you don't want to be looking too far ahead. However, Mike Elias has got to be looking at those next 14 games, thinking,
let's see.
I mean, I think obviously if you lose the series against Miami, you get swept by the Rays, and you lose the game one against the Guardians. You go, let's get it done now because you've still got a week and a half to the deadline. I just think there's a little bit more time than the Twitter Illuminati alluded to.
I think the other thing is we've got a day off on that 31st, which is the deadline. So it's not like we're going to be sitting waiting a result going, if we win this, we'll be 3 games back. We'll kind of have done what we can do or what the players can do at that point. And maybe that was a reaction yesterday to Selin Baker, the fact that we came out and swept a doubleheader. That there was a similar thing happened after trading Mancini and Lopez in 2022. We kind of got a run going for the next few weeks and looked like we were right in it, but it kind of petered away. And that's the thing; it's a long season, so it's so frustrating because we've done almost everything advertised the last
Grant,
2.5 months.
My positive is trying to convince you that there is still a chance. Come on, Grant. Come on.
No, I mean I've been looking at it, and as I said yesterday, was such an entertaining day to watch everything unfold from the trade in the morning to the 2 games. And that's, as a fan, that's what you want. You want to be looking forward to games. You don't want to be sitting going, we'll get this guy next season. He's going to come up and do something. You want to think of the here and now. And it's just so close because they've done this since the Boston doubleheader. They've just kept themselves in the race without going a big run. We're like a 10-game run away from being right in it, and maybe this is a 10-game run. We've now won 5 out of the last 6. Is that right?
So the last 10 were 7-3.
7-3. So it's so close. It's just, can we get close enough? Because there is a huge prize for trading some of these guys. And it would be stupid to ignore that. If we are a 4% playoff chance in 2 weeks, then I think we're going to press that button. Yeah, but we don't need to be. We can be closer than that. But
yeah, and so that's it. As I say, the positives continue to roll. My final words before we finish off is Mike Elias masterclass with the Baker trade. There's probably going to put a target on me back by the Twitter Illuminati, but I don't care.
No, we all agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah. We've been O's across the pond. As always, it's been a pleasure. I've been your host, Thomas. They've been Andy and Grant. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you.
See ya. Take care.
That's it for this episode of O's Across the Pond, bringing Birdland to Europe one episode at a time. Be sure to subscribe, share and follow along as we keep the Orioles conversation going from this side of the Atlantic. Until next time, stay loud, stay proud and let's go O's!